It started with a note, just a single piece of torn, lined paper, resting beneath my coffee mug when I got home from work. I didn't notice it at first. I walked in, dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes like always, and headed to the kitchen to heat up leftover Thai. That's when I saw it neatly placed, the corner sticking out from beneath the mug like it wanted to be found. I pulled it out. Don't look in the closet. The handwriting was mine, not just similar, identical. The same slight right slant, the same loop G's and ways. I stared at the note for a long moment, heart beginning to thump against my ribs. I didn't remember writing it. Why would I leave a note like that? And then my eyes drifted up, across the apartment to the hallway closet. The door was ajar, just enough to reveal blackness inside. I froze. I never leave it open. Ever. It's one of those things I'm obsessive about. I lock up. I shut things tight. I'm not the kind of person who forgets things like that. I should have laughed. Should have tossed the note and moved on. But my body wouldn't listen. A thick, creeping dread curled through my chest, wrapping itself around my spine. I clutched the paper tighter in my fist and took a step forward. The floor creaked beneath my weight as I approached the closet. I could feel the heat of my own breath. My fingers trembled as they reached for the knob, and I yanked the door open. Nothing, just the usual. My old winter coats. A pair of running shoes I haven't worn in a year. The vacuum I keep telling myself I'll use more. There was nothing unusual. No signs of anyone hiding. No movement, just stillness and dust. I let out a shaky breath and laughed. A quick, brittle sound that didn't feel right in my throat. I turned back to the kitchen, ready to dismiss it all as a weird mental hiccup, but the note was gone. I blinked, stopped cold. My fingers opened. Checked my palm, empty. I spun around, scanned the floor. I checked my pockets, the counter, under the mug again. Nothing. I was sure I still had it after opening the closet. I remembered gripping it in my fist. The paper had vanished. My apartment suddenly felt wrong. The familiar hum of the fridge was too loud, the shadows too deep. Even the stillness had changed, like the air itself was holding its breath. "You're just tired," I said to the empty room. You imagined it. But I didn't believe it. Not for a second. I grabbed my phone off the counter, more for comfort than anything else. As I opened the Notes app, just out of habit, not even sure why I froze, another note was sitting on the counter, right where the first one had been. "It knows you're looking." My heart slammed against my chest, so hard I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the bar stool behind me. My hand shook violently, my phone slipping through my fingers and clattering to the floor. I'd backed up until my spine hit the wall. This wasn't normal. This wasn't a prank. No one else had been in my apartment. I lived alone. I locked my door. I always locked it. I forced myself to move. My hands trembled as I picked up my phone. The screen had cracked, spider-webbed across the corner. I turned it on, and that's when the next blow landed. Notes app notification. Don't ignore it. I didn't open it. I couldn't. My thumb hovered above the screen, numb. My whole body felt wrong, like I was buzzing with static from the inside out. I finally tapped it. One note. One sentence. "Stop looking. It's watching." I dropped the phone again. I didn't pick up the phone. Not right away. I just sat on the floor, staring at the screen where it had landed face up. The message still glowing faintly. "Stop looking. It's watching." My breath was shallow, heart beating so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. Every instinct told me to leave, get out, go anywhere else, but my body wasn't listening. I felt frozen in place, my legs leaden, my skin clammy with sweat, and then I heard the floor creak. Not mine, out in the kitchen. It was subtle, barely a shift. But in the silence of my apartment, it sounded like thunder. I pressed my back to the wall, listening. Another creak. Closer. I held my breath. Someone or something was moving just beyond the bedroom door. I thought about calling someone. The police, a friend, anyone. But what would I even say? There's a supernatural note-writing intruder in my apartment? They'd think I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. My gaze darted around the room. I needed anything I could use as a weapon. My eyes landed on the metal lamp beside the bed. I lunged for it, nearly knocking it over in my haste. My sweaty fingers gripped the cold base tight. Another step outside the door. Then silence. I waited. Seconds dragged. Nothing. Until knock. One soft knock. I jumped. My grip on the lamp tightened, my arms aching with tension. Another knock. Louder. My voice barely worked. Who's there? No response. My mouth was dry. I'll call the police. Still nothing. Silence. For a full minute. I thought maybe it had gone. Then I heard it again. Skirk. A slow, dragging sound from inside the room. Behind me. The hairs on my arms rose. I turned slowly, every part of me screaming not to, but I had to look. A note was now sitting on the dresser. I hadn't heard it appear. Hadn't seen movement. But there it was, folded perfectly, just waiting. I didn't want to move, didn't want to go near it, but I did. I crept toward it like it might explode in my hands. The moment I picked it up, my fingers tingled, like the paper had a charge running through it. It's already inside. My knees nearly gave out. I stumbled backward, nearly knocking over the dresser, trying to breathe. I knew no one had come in. I knew that dresser had been empty. Then the bedroom closet creaked. Just once. A quiet groan of old hinges as the door began to swing open on its own. My entire body turned to ice. I hadn't touched it. I never leave it open. The door widened a few inches more. Beyond it, darkness. Pure, depthless dark. A space that looked far too deep for the dimensions of my closet. Like the shadows inside weren't shadows at all. Like they were waiting. I gripped the lamp like a lifeline and stepped forward, slowly, cautiously, every movement deliberate. I wasn't sure what I expected, someone crouched inside, or a rat maybe, but what I saw was worse. 2 eyes, glowing yellow, set deep in. The dark, not blinking, just watching. My breath hitched, and the world tilted. I backed up, legs shaking, unable to look away. Then the eyes blinked. The closet door creaked wider. Something shifted behind the eyes, something moving. I turned and ran. The hallway outside my apartment was warped. Not physically, not visibly, but it felt stretched. Like I was running down a tunnel made of memory and shadow, not drywall. And floorboards. The lights above flickered in perfect rhythm with my steps. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just had to get away from that thing. But the hallway didn't end. I kept running. The numbers on the apartment doors repeated. 303, 304, 303 again. The air smelled wrong, dusty and coppery, like old pennies and damp paper. Behind me, footsteps, soft, slow, wrong. I dared a glance over my shoulder. Something was following, and it was tall, unnaturally so. Its limbs, gangly and too long, bending at angles no human should. Its movements were twitchy, like it was stuttering through time, and it held a note. A crumpled slip of paper in its elongated fingers. I turned back and ran harder. My lungs screamed. My legs burned. Still the hallway went on. Then I tripped. My foot caught on something that wasn't there, and I slammed hard into the ground, pain shooting through my arm. I scrambled, clawing at the floor, trying to push myself up. Too late. The thing loomed over me. It crouched, those long limbs folding like a grotesque spider. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. It dropped the note in front of me. My shaking hand reached for it, even as tears blurred my vision. You can't run. I screamed and woke up on the floor of my apartment. Not the hallway. The light coming through the windows was wrong, faint, and colorless, like the world had been drained. And all around me, notes? Dozens, hundreds, thousands, taped to the walls, scattered across the floor, stuffed into drawers, pinned to the ceiling, all in my handwriting, all waiting. I didn't move for a long time. I sat there on the floor, knees drawn up to my chest, surrounded by paper. It was everywhere. Torn pages, sticky notes, notebook scraps, receipts, each one scrawled with messages in my handwriting. Some were short. Don't look. It's watching? Too late now. Others were longer, spiraling off the edge of the page like I couldn't stop writing. Some were scratched through in frustration. Some were rewritten over again, and every single one was written by me or something that could mimic me perfectly. My eyes locked onto a new one lying just in front of me, right side up. It hadn't been there a moment ago. You're home now. The words echoed in my skull. You're home now? It didn't feel like home. Not anymore. I forced myself to my feet. The muscles in my back protested, stiff and aching. My skin felt clammy, like I'd been sweating in my sleep, except I hadn't slept. Not really. I stumbled to the front door. The handle wouldn't budge. Locked. I unlocked it. Or tried to. Nothing happened. I twisted it harder. Yanked. Slammed my shoulder against it. The knob turned freely, but the door didn't open. Not even a little. Panic surged through me. I turned to the window. What I saw made my stomach drop. Bricks. Bricked over from the outside. Sloppily at first glance, but the more I stared, the more seamless it seemed, like the building itself had grown over the window. The glass was intact, but there was no light coming in. No sound from outside. Just endless brick. I ran to the bedroom. That window was the same. The bathroom? Bricked over. Even the air vents were sealed. There were no sounds from upstairs or next door. No hum of passing traffic. Just silence. I was trapped. No, not just trapped. Sealed in? My phone. I sprinted back to the bedroom where I'd dropped it before. It was still lying on the floor. Screen cracked but glowing faintly. I grabbed it and opened the messages app. I started typing to my mom. Just something, anything. But every letter I typed vanished the moment I hit send. No failed message. No red warning. Just gone. I tried calling. No dial tone. I opened the camera. The screen was black. Not dark. Black. Like it couldn't see anything at all. I snapped a photo anyway. When I opened the gallery, the image made me recoil. It was me, not standing in the room, but sitting right where I'd just been on the floor, surrounded by notes, staring blankly at the camera, except my eyes were completely black. I dropped the phone like it was burning. A sound behind me made me spin. A fluttering. Paper. A fresh note drifted down from the ceiling, slow like a feather. I caught it without meaning to. It won't let you leave. I started to cry. Not the dramatic, movie-style sobbing. The quiet kind. The broken kind. The kind where your body shakes and your throat tightens and your mind goes somewhere distant. Someplace you think might be safe, but isn't. I turned in a slow circle. Notes everywhere. Piled up in the corners. Stuck to the lamps. Pinned to the ceiling fan. Unmoving even though I knew it was off. The paper near the walls started rustling. As if stirred by a wind I couldn't feel. And then I saw it again. The thing. Standing in the far corner of the living room. Half in shadow. Its body was wrong. Limbs too long. Skin like old paper, stretched taut. Its blank, featureless face stared straight at me, glowing yellow eyes. Burning from within, it didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. But it was watching. My legs wouldn't obey. I couldn't run. I couldn't even scream. Its long fingers slowly lifted. Another note. It let it fall to the floor. I didn't want to read it, but I already knew I would. I forced myself forward, one step at a time, until I stood just close enough to see the words written in my perfect, familiar scrawl. Now it's your turn. And before I could even process what that meant, it dissolved like ash scattered in the wind, leaving only silence. But the meaning hit me like a knife to the chest. It wasn't just haunting me. It was replacing me. I backed away and fell into the desk chair behind me, shaking. My eyes landed on the notepad in front of me. Pen resting on top. Clean sheet ready to be used. And without thinking, I picked it up. My hand moved on its own. Not fast. Slow. Careful. almost like it was guiding me. The pen touched paper, and I began to write. Don't look in the closet. I didn't sleep. There's no sleeping in this place. Now, not when the walls breathe and the shadows move when I'm not looking. The notes multiply when I close my eyes. That's not a metaphor. I tested it. I sat completely still. Eyes shut, breathing slow. Just for a minute. When I opened them, 6 new notes had appeared on the coffee table in front of me, all in my handwriting. All saying the same thing. Stay awake. I was beginning to understand. This thing, whatever it was, didn't just haunt people. Trapped them. And once you were inside, you couldn't leave. Couldn't call out. Couldn't even scream loud enough for anyone to hear. Reality folded inward. The apartment became a bubble, stitched closed with fear. The thing didn't show itself often. Just enough. Enough to remind me it was watching. Waiting. The only thing I could still do. The only thing it let me do. Was write. That's the part I didn't get at first. The part that started to feel like the cruelest joke. It wanted me to write. Every time I resisted, the air grew heavy. The walls pressed in. The silence deepened until it felt like I'd gone deaf. But when I picked up the pen, the pressure eased slightly, like it was giving me permission. So I wrote notes, instructions, warnings, even ones I didn't understand. Don't listen when it talks. It wears your face sometimes. If you see the mirror blink, look away. And the one I kept writing over and over like it was trying to get somewhere, don't look in the closet. Every time I wrote that line, it felt like someone else was moving my hand. Like something was bleeding through me. My own fingers started to blister from how tightly I gripped the pen. Then one night, if you can even call it night in this place, I heard the sound. Keys. A jingle from behind the front door. My heart stopped. I stood frozen as the sound of tumblers clicked. The doorknob turned. For a second, I dared to hope. Someone's here, someone can see me, someone can help me. But that hope died the moment the door opened, and he walked in. Just a regular guy, early 30s, judging by the way he dressed. Work bag over one shoulder, phone in one hand. Slightly annoyed expression, like the leasing office had made him pick up the keys too late. He didn't see me, didn't react. Just stepped over the threshold, looked around at the empty room, and muttered, "Ooh, creepy lighting." I tried to speak, tried to shout, move, anything, but I couldn't. My voice didn't work. My body didn't respond. He walked right past me like I didn't exist, and maybe I didn't, not to him. I realized then this wasn't just a haunting, this was a trap, a cycle. I had become part of the apartment's furniture, part of the story now. Invisible to the next victim, just as whoever came before me had likely been to me. And the worst part, the notes, they were gone. The walls were clean, the floors bare. Not a scrap of paper in sight, except for one, sitting neatly under a coffee mug in the kitchen. The guy wandered over and spotted it. Picked it up casually. I couldn't hear his voice clearly, but I saw the frown form on his face as he read it. Don't look in the closet. He looked confused, then amused. He tossed the note aside. My blood turned to ice. He didn't believe it. I tried again to scream, to throw something, to do something, but I was stuck in place like a statue. The air grew heavy again. Not for me, for him. He rubbed the back of his neck and glanced around. The apartment had already started changing for him. The lights dimmed. The shadows deepened. I saw movement in the hallway closet. The door had cracked open. Just a few inches. Just enough for darkness to spill out. He didn't notice. Not yet. But I saw those same yellow eyes watching from within. The same ones that had stared into me. And then I knew what I had to do. My body moved for the first time. Since he entered. Not much, just my hand. It dragged itself across the desk toward the notepad. My fingers trembled as I gripped the pen. I wasn't writing for myself anymore. I was writing for him, to warn him, to stop the cycle, to help him. Escape before it was too late. I wrote, "It knows you're looking. Don't ignore the notes. If you see your handwriting, read it. You're not alone." And finally, as my hand ached and the air pressed harder, Get out now. The paper lifted from the notepad on its own. The apartment delivered it. He turned just as the note landed at his feet. Bent down, picked it up. His face changed. The first flicker of fear. Maybe, just maybe, he'd believe it. Maybe he'd get out before it was too late, but the closet door creaked wider, like it blinked. I rushed to the notepad, scrawled frantically. Don't look in the mirror. Too late, he'd already turned. His eyes locked with his reflection, and it wasn't his face staring back. It was mine, but not really, it was wrong. The smile was too wide, the eyes too black. The reflection didn't copy his movement, it moved on its own, head tilting, expression flickering like it was trying to figure out which face to wear. He stumbled backward, dropping the knife. His mouth opened in a silent scream. Then the mirror shattered, and from behind him the thing appeared. It reached out slow, patient, and dropped a note at his feet. I couldn't see the message from here, but I didn't have to. I already knew what it said. He can't run. The mirror lay in shards across the floor. The jagged edges caught the dim light like tiny knives, but the reflection was still there staring. Back from every sliver, fractured into 1,000 pieces. The thing didn't lunge, it never rushed. It stalked slow and methodical, like it knew he had nowhere to go. The new tenant scrambled backward, slipping on the tile, knocking over a stool as he went. His foot skidded on a note that had just appeared, crisp, clean, perfectly centered in his path. I watched from the corner, helpless. My hands trembled. Above the notepad, but I didn't write. Not yet. I knew what came next. He reached the front door again, twisted the handle violently, shoulder checking the frame until the hinges groaned. He was shouting out, screaming for help that would never come. His voice didn't carry past the walls. Nothing ever left this place, not even me. His phone buzzed on the floor. He glanced at it. Another note had appeared on the screen, typed. Into the Notes app. I didn't need to see it to know what it said. It's already inside. He turned and finally he saw it fully. The thing stood inches away. Too tall, too thin. Its limbs folded inward like a corpse that had dried in the wrong shape. Its head tilted to the side, impossibly far, as if asking a question it already knew the answer to. His knees buckled. I watched him collapse onto the floor. He wasn't screaming anymore. He was shaking. And then the thing did something it hadn't done before. It opened its mouth. Not a real mouth. Just a seam paper thin unfolding from the blank stretch of its face. And from that seam came a slow sickening rustle, like 100 pages being turned all at once. And out fell a note. It drifted slowly through the air and landed in front of him. His trembling hands reached for it. I knew what it would say. Now it's your turn. He began to cry. Just like I had. He looked up, tears streaming down. His face, and for a second, just a second, his eyes met mine. He saw me, truly saw me. My breath caught. I didn't know if it was the fear or the weakening walls of the apartment. But for one fragile moment, our realities overlapped. I was visible, present. His lips moved. What is this? I don't know, I whispered. And this time, he heard me. His eyes widened. I dropped the pen. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe that's why the thing made us write. Not to warn, not to trap, to bind us here, to chain us in ink and fear. What if stopping meant freedom? What if one person refused to play its game? He looked at the paper in front of him, then down at his shaking hands, then to the pen on the floor beside him. No, he said aloud. I'm not writing anything. The room seemed to grow colder. The lights dimmed further. The thing didn't move, but the notes did. Hundreds of them suddenly fell from the ceiling, pouring like ash from the air vents, sliding down the walls like dead leaves. The apartment howled in silent rage. He curled up, shielding his head, but he didn't reach for the pen. Didn't write. And something cracked. In the corner of the room, the wall split. Just an inch-wide fracture. But it was real. I saw color real light bleeding through from the other side. The world outside. Faint city sounds. Distant traffic. The wind. Freedom. The crack pulsed. The thing screamed, though, not with sound. It was a pressure, a vibration that split through the room like a psychic rupture. The notes began to curl and blacken. The mirror shards on the floor cracked further, reflecting nothing now. He ran, straight toward the break, straight into the light, and for a moment, I felt myself pulled forward, like I was tethered to him, like if he made it through. I might too. But just as he crossed the threshold, the light snapped shut. The wall sealed behind him, and I was alone again. The apartment was quiet, clean. The notes were gone. All of them. Even the pen. I looked down at my hands. No ink stains. No blisters. No shaking. Just stillness. A breath escaped me. A dry, tired breath that felt like it had been held for days. I stood up. For the first time since it began, I could move freely. The door creaked. I turned. The closet door stood wide open, and inside, only coats, shoes, dust, no eyes, no darkness. Just a normal, empty closet. I stepped into the hallway. The numbers on the apartment doors no longer looped. The exit sign at the far end of the corridor flickered faint, but real. I walked toward it, and just before I reached it, I turned back one last time. The apartment door, still slightly ajar. I stared for a long moment, then pulled it shut. Behind me, I heard the sound of keys jingling, footsteps approaching, and from beneath the doorframe, just visible on the hallway floor, a fresh note slid out. My handwriting. Don't look in the closet. Dinner was nearly over when Rufus growled. Not a bark or a huff, this was different. A low, continuous growl vibrating from deep in his chest. It wasn't unusual for him to get spooked by a noise outside or someone walking by the window. Usually, one bark, maybe a huff, then he'd settle. But this growl didn't stop. Rufus, knock it off, I said, without looking up, spearing another piece of chicken from my plate. He didn't respond, no tail wag, no guilty glance. Instead, he stood stiffly by the fireplace, locked in place. Ears pinned back, eyes fixed on the far corner of the living room. I followed his gaze. Nothing there. Just the old floor lamp and a couple of half-unpacked boxes I hadn't gotten around to since moving in. It was the same cluttered corner it had always been, but something about it suddenly felt off. "What is it, boy?" I asked, setting my fork down. He didn't answer, of course, but the growl grew louder, deeper. His hackles were up. And then he took a single step forward, slow, measured, like he was stalking prey I couldn't see. I rose from the table, my chest tightening. "Come here, boy." He didn't. Instead, he barked, loud, panicked, not once, but twice. Then a snarl ripped from his throat, guttural and furious. The room felt wrong, too quiet, like everything outside this moment had ceased to exist. I moved cautiously toward the corner, my eyes flicking between the boxes and the shadow behind the lamp. Rufus crept behind me, his body low to the ground. Whimpering softly, there was nothing there. I knelt, pushed aside the lamp, slid one of the boxes out. Still nothing. No mice, no bugs, no signs of movement. Just dust and shadows and silence. I turned to reassure Rufus and froze. He was staring at me like I'd done something unforgivable. No, not me. He was staring through me, like something stood directly behind me. My breath hitched. My knees felt like water. I turned slowly, expecting to see nothing. The corner behind me was empty. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of presence. Like the air was thicker there, dense. I faced Rufus again. He'd backed up across the rug, tail tucked, lips peeled in a silent snarl. He refused to meet my gaze, locked on that same damned corner, like it owed him a blood debt. I moved to the couch and sat down, my hands shaking slightly. "It's just shadows," I muttered. "Just a weird draft." Maybe a smell outside set him off. Rufus didn't react. He stayed frozen, staring. I reached for my phone, desperate for a distraction, and opened the camera app. I aimed it at the corner, half expecting, half hoping to see something else. Of place, nothing, just the lamp, the boxes, the shadows. Still, as I watched, something changed. The shadows on the screen moved, not like a flicker of light or shifting dust. They stretched. I blinked, lowered the phone, looked with my own eyes. Everything looked normal. My phone buzzed in my hand, making me jump. I nearly dropped it. Jesus, I muttered, glancing down. Low battery. 5%. The screen dimmed, plunging. The room into an eerie semi-darkness. Rufus growled again. But this time, it sounded different. Not a warning. Fear. The kind of fear only animals understand before a storm or an earthquake. A primal, instinctual dread. I stood, heart pounding. The shadows in the corner looked darker, now more like ink than absence. My vision swam. I took a step back, and that's when I heard it. A scratch. Soft, deliberate, against the hardwood floor. Not Rufus, he was beside me. And I wasn't moving. The sound came from the corner, a single dragging scratch. I grabbed Rufus's collar, and he pressed against my leg, whining. I took one more look. Still nothing. But the dread, that crushing, skin-tight dread, was real. Something wasn't? Right. Something was getting closer. The sound of that single scratch haunted me long after it stopped. Rufus pressed against me, vibrating with tension. His growl had faded into a low, constant whine, as if he was trying not to draw attention to us, as if we were being hunted. I reached for the living room light switch, my fingers fumbling in the dark. I flipped it, nothing. The bulb didn't even flicker. I flipped it again, then again. Still nothing. No, I muttered. Rufus let out a short, sharp bark. He wasn't looking at the corner anymore. He was staring at the floor. I followed his gaze and saw the shadow, except it wasn't just a shadow. It moved. Slow. Deliberate. It slithered across the floor, like black smoke poured from a shattered jar. It didn't pulse or flicker like something caused by light. It crawled, inch by inch, toward us. My pulse spiked. I backed away, dragging Rufus with me. My mind scrambled to explain it. Some trick of the light, a weird optical illusion, maybe a power surge. But no, the shape was too clear, too wrong. It reached the middle of the room, then stopped. For a heartbeat, the air went still. Then I heard it. A whisper. My name. Lila. Barely audible, like it came from inside my own skull. I clapped. My hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. Rufus barked wildly, snapping at the air. He lunged forward as if trying to bite something that wasn't there. Then, just as quickly, he yelped and retreated, tail between his legs, pushing himself behind me again. No, I whispered. No. The whispering started again, louder, not just my name anymore, but sounds I couldn't understand. A language that slithered through the air like venom. I turned and ran. Rufus bolted with me, his claws skittering across the hardwood. I didn't stop until we reached the kitchen, slamming the door behind us. I locked it, even though I wasn't sure what a lock could do against something like that. I flipped on the kitchen light. It buzzed once, then flickered to life, a sickly yellow glow. I didn't care, it was light. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and turned on the flashlight. The battery icon flashed red, but it stayed on. Rufus paced by the fridge, whining. He kept glancing toward the hallway that led back to the living room. Okay, I whispered. It's just ... Something explainable. Something rational. I didn't believe that, not for a second. Then I heard it again, the scratching. But now it came from beneath me. From the floor, from the basement. My eyes snapped to the basement door. It was cracked open. Barely, but definitely open. That door was always shut. I never left it open. It didn't even open easily. The old hinges were swollen with paint and age. You had to yank it. But now it sat ajar. And something was breathing behind it. Rufus growled, teeth bared, tail stiff. He barked once, then backed away again. I stepped forward slowly until I stood in front of the door. The smell hit me first. Earth, mold, something rotten. I pointed my flashlight into the crack and saw the top of the basement stairs. And muddy footprints? Coming up, they stopped just inside the door. I slammed it shut with a yelp and locked it. My hand trembled. Against the knob, Rufus barked again. Behind me, I turned. A note lay in the center of the kitchen floor. A piece of torn paper that hadn't been there seconds ago. I bent down and picked it up. 2 words written in shaky, childlike handwriting. It followed. My stomach dropped. I turned back to the basement door. Another scratch. Longer this? Time. It dragged across the back of the door like fingernails or claws. And then another whisper. Closer, right next to my ear. Lila, I screamed and bolted, running for the front of the house, dragging Rufus with me. The air felt heavier now. Every step was harder than it should have been. Like the house didn't want me to leave. I reached the front door and threw it open. Cool night air hit my face like a slap. The relief was overwhelming. But then I looked down and froze. A single muddy footprint rested on the welcome mat, not leading into the house, leading out. The muddy footprint on the welcome mat stared up at me like an accusation. Fresh, wet, and unmistakably human. But it didn't come from me. I hadn't stepped outside yet. I hadn't even left the house. And worse, it was pointing the wrong way. Outward. Rufus growled beside me. Low and guttural, his body angled between me and the open door. I knelt beside him, running my hand over his back. He was trembling. So was I. I should have bolted. Grabbed my keys, thrown Rufus in the car, and driven until we hit daylight. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen on the threshold, staring at the print. Then I noticed something else. There wasn't just one footprint anymore. There were 2. No, 3. Each step appeared one at a time, like someone was walking backward up the porch. Coming closer to me, to us, and there was no one there. I stepped back inside and slammed the door, locking it. The moment I did, the hallway lights flickered above me, and every bulb popped in sequence, bang, 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 until I was left in darkness. Rufus barked, whined, then darted ahead of me into the living room. I followed blindly, nearly tripping over a rug as I fumbled for my phone. My flashlight flicked on just long enough to catch him crouching by the couch, growling at something. In the corner. That corner again. Same one as before. I didn't want to look. I knew what I'd see, nothing. But also, not nothing. Just bat wrongness. Bat heaviness. The shadows that moved when they shouldn't. The feeling that eyes were staring at me from inside the walls. The flashlight flickered once, twice, then died. My phone screen went black, dead. The only sound was Rufus's growling and my shallow breathing. Then a voice whispered from the dark this time. Not soft, not distant, right behind me. Don't turn around. I didn't. I couldn't. My knees locked. My breath hitched. My body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. Lila. The voice whispered again. Not a question. A statement. It knew me. I squeezed my eyes shut. Please, I whispered. Go away. Silence? A breath brushed against the back of my neck. Not wind, not imagination. A breath. I spun, swinging my arm out wildly. Nothing there. The air, though, felt thicker, now almost humid. I staggered back, heart thudding like a drum in my ears. And then I saw it, on the coffee table. A piece of paper, folded neatly. I stepped forward, picked it up with shaking hands. Written in the center, scrawled in jagged letters. Let it in. Rufus barked again. He was backing away from the front door now, his gaze darting upward. I followed his line of sight. The ceiling. Above us, faint creaks echoed like someone was crawling in the attic. Slow, deliberate. I backed toward the kitchen. The paper still clenched in my fist. Something moved past the hallway fast. Just a shadow. A blur. No. I screamed, turning and sprinting for the kitchen. Rufus was right behind me. We crashed into the room together, and I slammed the door behind us, clicking the lock. It didn't matter. Another folded note lay in the center of the floor, still warm, still damp with ink. I bent down and opened it. This one was worse. You already did. My vision swam. My body shook. I didn't even feel Rufus pushing against me anymore, trying to lead me away. My eyes locked on the words as the whispering started again, louder now, coming from everywhere. The pipes, the walls, the light fixtures. Lila, Layla, Lila, Lila. I covered my ears. The fridge groaned behind me, then clicked off. The light above the stove blinked and went out. The basement door creaked open again, and from the dark below came a new sound. Not whispering, not scratching, not breathing, but laughing. Soft, childlike, and getting closer. The laugh didn't belong. In this house, high-pitched, giggling like a child, but not quite. There was something wrong about it. Too hollow, too empty, like it had been drained of anything human. It floated up from the basement like smoke, curling into the kitchen, thickening the air. Rufus snarled at the door, his body rigid. He didn't bark, he didn't move, just stood there, tail down, trembling, teeth bared. The basement door, previously slammed shut and locked now, hung wide open. I couldn't see anything past the third step, just darkness. Like it didn't lead to a basement anymore, but to somewhere else. My phone was dead. The lights were gone. I had no flashlight. Only the pale moonlight through the kitchen window and the smell wet earth rust and something rotting. I backed away. Nope, not happening, I muttered. Rufus stayed rooted in place, a soft growl vibrating from deep in his chest. He didn't follow me. Then I heard it again. The voice from the bottom of the stairs. Leela, longer this time. Drawn out, mocking, like it was tasting the name. Rufus suddenly lunged forward, barking violently at the doorway. But something invisible stopped him. His body jerked back mid-stride like he'd slammed into a wall. He yelped and fell to the side, whimpering. I rushed to him, dropping to my knees. Hey, are you okay? I whispered, stroking his side. He whined and pressed his face into my lap, tail tucked so tight I could barely see it. And then came the footsteps. Slow, barefoot, wet. They climbed the stairs, one by one, not rushed, not stumbling, purposeful, confident. I stood up and stared into the dark. Nothing there. But I could hear it. See the slight shift of shadows. Feel the pressure building with every step it took. The third stair groaned. The fourth. Then silence. The thing had stopped. Right at the top. Just outside the doorway. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. It was there, watching me. A shape began to take form in the shadows. A shimmer, barely visible like heat distortion in the air. Tall, wrong, curved, like its joints bent backward. I blinked and it was gone. My chest seized. My breath came fast. I grabbed Rufus by the collar and pulled him toward the door, leading outside. But as I passed the table, something caught my eye. Another note, folded, sitting perfectly in the center of the table, as if it had been placed there with care. I didn't want to touch it, but I did. I opened it with numb fingers. You're already in. The laugh returned, right behind me. I turned, dragging Rufus with me. The kitchen light snapped on just for a second, and in that flicker I saw it, standing at the top of the basement stairs. Pale, emaciated, looming, its arms dangled too low, almost touching the floor. Its legs looked twisted, like they'd been broken and put back together wrong. Its face was smooth, no features except those glowing yellow eyes. Eyes that burned into me. I screamed. Rufus bolted toward the front of the house, dragging me with him. We hit the hallway at full speed. Every light exploded as we passed, showering us in sparks. When we reached the front door, it was already open. I didn't stop to question it. We burst outside into the cold night, nearly tumbling down the porch steps. I didn't look back. Not yet. I ran to the car, threw the door open, shoved Rufus in and climbed in after him. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely jam the keys into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Headlights flared. And then I saw it, in the rearview mirror, standing on the porch, staring at us. Its body twitched like it didn't know how to be still. Its head tilted too far to the side. Bones shouldn't bend. Like that, it raised a hand and dropped something. A piece of paper. It fluttered through the air, caught in the wind, and landed perfectly on the porch. I couldn't read it from where I sat. I didn't want to. I peeled out of the driveway, tires screaming, gravel flying. But the further I drove, the less I felt like I was leaving it behind. Rufus was in the back seat, still trembling. I whispered to him, voice shaky, trying to keep both of us calm. But then, as we turned the corner and the house disappeared from view, I saw them, muddy footprints, smearing across the windshield, from the outside, as if something had crawled over the car while I was driving. I didn't stop until I saw the faded vacancy sign of a roadside motel flickering in the distance. It was one of those rundown places, chipped paint, buzzing neon, empty parking lot. But I didn't care. I just needed walls. A locked door. Somewhere that wasn't the house. I pulled into the lot, brakes screeching, and jumped out of the car. Rufus was already scrambling to follow, pawing at the door until I let him out. He stuck close to my leg, growling low and constant, like he still expected something to follow. I grabbed my wallet and ran to the front office. The man behind the counter looked up like he hadn't seen another human in days. He didn't ask questions, just slid me a key and pointed down the hallway. Room 6. I didn't care how it smelled, or that the sheets probably hadn't been washed in weeks. I just slammed the door behind us and locked it. Deadbolt, chain, chair under the knob. Every barrier I could think of. Rufus immediately crawled under the bed, whining softly. I sat on the edge, still shaking, still trying to process what I'd seen, what I'd heard, what I'd let in. The room was silent except for the hum of the heater and Rufus's uneven breathing. I opened my phone. It had charged a little during the drive. 12%. Enough to text someone. Maybe call. I started to type out a message to my sister, but my fingers hesitated over the screen. What would I even say? Hey, something. Followed me home. It doesn't have a face, but knows my name. Also it leaves notes. I deleted the message before I sent it. Instead, I opened the Notes app, just out of habit. But there was already a note there, one I didn't write. You think this is far enough? My stomach clenched. I backed out of the app, but the screen flickered, just once. Then again. I looked at the signal bars. Gone. No reception, no Wi-Fi. Of course. The heater kicked off with a loud clunk, and the sudden silence made the room feel off, thicker, like the air had shifted again. Rufus let out a low, shaky growl from beneath the bed. I stood and checked the window. Dark outside, pitch black. I couldn't even see the parking lot lights anymore. I turned back toward the room and froze. There was a piece of paper sitting on the newsstand. I hadn't seen it before. Hadn't noticed it when I walked in. Didn't place it there. My chest tightened. I approached slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The paper was folded in half, edges slightly curled like it had been damp at some point. I picked it up, hands trembling, and opened it. 3 words. Don't go back. I dropped it. Rufus barked once sharp and panicked. He scrambled out from under the bed and pressed himself against me, growling at the motel door. Then came the sound. Tap, tap, tap. Someone knocking. 3. Slow knocks. I didn't move. My breath caught in my throat. I just stared at the door. The knocks came again, a little louder, a little slower. Rufus barked again, more aggressive now, but didn't approach the door. He wouldn't go near it. Go away, I said, voice shaking. Silence, then a whisper. Not from the door. From the bathroom, from behind me, Lila. I spun. The bathroom was dark, the door slightly ajar. I reached for the light switch. It flickered on. The mirror over the sink was fogged, like someone had just taken a hot shower. I took a step closer and watched. Words appeared in the condensation, slowly, as if written by an unseen finger. Too late. The bathroom light went out. I screamed and backed into the wall, heart pounding, blood roaring in my ears. Rufus barked wildly, leaping toward the bathroom, then retreating again. Then the tapping resumed. Not at the door this time, at the window. I turned to look. Muddy footprints on the glass, climbing up the outside. And in the dark, just beyond the pane, two glowing yellow eyes watched me. I stumbled backward from the window, nearly tripping over the corner of the bed. The eyes didn't blink. They just stared, glowing with that sickly yellow hue that burned into my brain. Rufus barked louder than ever, but the sound felt so small compared to the thing outside. Then, in one quick motion, the lights in the room went out. Total darkness swallowed everything. I screamed, scrambling from my phone. Its screen glowed for half a second before dying completely. Click-dot, the doorknob turned. I bolted to it, pressing all my weight against the door, flipping the lock again, even though I knew it wouldn't matter. The knob twisted violently now, rattling like someone or something was trying to break in. And then it stopped. Silence. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Rufus was pressed against my leg, growling low and steady. Then, behind me, I heard the soft hiss of paper sliding across wood. I turned slowly, already knowing what I'd find. Another note. This time, it sat on the middle of the bed, like it had always been there. I approached with trembling legs and picked it up with numb fingers. Just 2 words this time. Let me what? The floor beneath me groaned. The air turned ice cold. Rufus whined and backed away, ears flat. And then the bed moved, not a creak or a shift. It lurched as if something massive had dropped onto the mattress from above. My mouth went dry. I grabbed Rufus and bolted for the door, jerking it open, despite every cell in my body screaming, "Don't." The hallway outside wasn't the same. It was longer, narrower. The walls had warped, bending inward, twisting like something was squeezing. The space itself. And the lights, they didn't work. One by one, they flickered and died as we ran past them. Rufus led the way, pulling hard, barking and growling at shadows I couldn't see. I didn't care, I just kept moving. At the end of the hallway, the exit sign pulsed weakly. I reached for the handle and froze. Another note was taped to the glass. "You brought it with you." The air left my lungs. I stumbled back. The motel door swung open on its own. Outside wasn't the parking lot. It was my house. The porch, the front steps, the muddy yard. It was like I had never left. I turned. The hallway behind me was gone. Just a doorway leading straight into my old living room. Rufus whined, pacing frantically at my feet. "No," I whispered. "This isn't real." But it was, because now I could hear it again. The breathing. Close. So close I could feel it against my skin. And then I saw the last note. It wasn't on paper. It was scratched into the wall beside the door. He never left. Rufus whimpered. His tail tucked so tightly it disappeared. A slow creak behind me. The closet door. I didn't want to look, but I did, and there it was. The thing. The tall, unnatural shape. The blank face. The burning yellow eyes. It stepped out from the dark, limbs bending in ways that made my stomach lurch. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. Because I finally understood. It wasn't haunting my house. It was haunting me. I was the door. I let it in, and now I couldn't shut it. The world dimmed. My thoughts slowed. My legs gave out beneath me. As I collapsed to the floor, I saw one final thing. A fresh note, floating down from nowhere, landing beside me. Rufus barked once, mournful, and then went silent. I picked up the note. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The words were written in my handwriting. "Now it's your turn." The day had been ordinary boring, even. I had spent the evening cleaning up paperwork that had piled up over the week, spreading folders across the coffee table, the hum of the ceiling fan filling the quiet. By the time the clock struck midnight, I was exhausted. Ready to call it a night, I stood to start clearing things away. That's when I saw it. A small, black USB stick, sitting neatly in the center of the coffee table, like it had been placed there on purpose. I stopped mid-step. I didn't own a USB stick like that. I bent down slowly, eyes locked on the unfamiliar object. Maybe I'd brought it in without thinking, dropped it from my bag, but no, there was no mistaking it. I had never seen this before. A chill crept up my spine, the kind that feels like someone's breathing down your neck. Still, curiosity pushed through the unease. I reached out, hesitating a moment before picking it up. It was cold to the touch. I grabbed my laptop from the couch, flipped it open, and plugged the USB stick into the port. There was only one file inside. A video. Its title was just a date, yesterday's date, followed by a time. 2 a.m., my stomach tightened. I clicked. The screen flickered and showed my bedroom. The video was in black and white, slightly grainy, but unmistakably my room. The angle was strange high up in the corner, almost like it had been recorded from where the smoke detector was. I stared in disbelief. My bed was centered on the screen. Blankets still tucked neatly. A faint glow came in from the hallway light I always left on. And there I was, lying on the bed, asleep. I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. I live alone. I stared down at the closed screen, frozen. That wasn't a memory I could justify. I hadn't set up any kind of camera in my room, and no one else had access to my apartment. The deadbolt had been locked when I got home. The windows shut, no signs of disturbance. So how did someone get that footage? I stood up quickly and checked the front door. Still locked. The chain was in place. My breath caught as I crept. Down the hallway, peeking into every room, bathroom, closet, even the laundry room, empty. No sign anyone had ever been here but me. I returned to the living room, pulse still pounding. The USB stick sat there on the table like it was mocking me. I didn't want to touch it again, but I needed to know more. I needed to finish watching the video, because something told me the worst part wasn't that I'd been filmed in my sleep. It was what might come next. I stared at the laptop for a long time before finally opening it again. The screen lit up, like even the machine didn't want to relive what it had shown me. But the video file was still there. Same time jump, same date. The USB drive still sat plugged into the side, pulsing faintly with light. I hovered the cursor over the file. A voice in my head screamed not to press play again. But another part of some deeper, colder part knew I had to. The video started up. There I was, in bed, asleep. I fast-forwarded through the first half hour. Nothing changed. Just me breathing steadily, twitching occasionally in my sleep. The room around me was still and silent, shadows unmoving. I almost convinced myself that the video was some strange prank, just a clever fake. Until 2:47 a.m., the bedroom door opened, not all the way. Just a slow, creaking nudge that let in a thin strip of darkness from the hallway. My breath hitched. I didn't move in the video, just slept soundly, unaware of the shift. But I leaned forward in real life, eyes glued to the screen. Nothing entered. Not right away. But something changed. The shadows inside the room started to shift, subtly at first. Like the darkness at the far side of the bed grew deeper, heavier. Almost as though someone had stepped inside but wasn't fully visible. And then I heard it. Whispering. I paused the video, but the sound kept playing. A soft, crackling voice. Low and breathy, like static with intent. Alex. I jerked the laptop closed again, heart hammering in my chest. That was my name. I stood up so quickly I knocked over a chair. My skin felt icy, sweat sliding down the back of my neck. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a prank. Someone had been in my bedroom. Worse, they knew my name. I spun in place, suddenly sure I wasn't alone in the apartment. The hallway looked darker than it had a moment ago. My reflection in the TV screen flickered as I moved. But for a split second, I could swear there were two silhouettes instead of one. I forced myself to speak aloud, just to shatter the silence. Is anyone here? My voice sounded ridiculous, hollow, and shaky. Nothing answered. Nothing moved. I grabbed the USB stick from the laptop, yanked it free, and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall with a soft clack and fell behind the couch. My breathing was shallow. My hands were shaking. There was no rational explanation for this. No broken locks. No signs of a break-in. But someone or something had been in my apartment last night. Had watched me, filmed me, and whispered my name. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat on the couch until sunrise, wrapped in a blanket, every light in the apartment turned on. The USB stick remained where it had fallen wedged behind the couch, but I couldn't bring myself to touch it again. Just knowing it was still in the room made my skin crawl. By morning, I convinced myself I was going to fix this. I tore the apartment apart, closets, cabinets, under the bed. Behind the fridge, I searched for anything that might explain how someone could have recorded me without me noticing. A camera, a microphone, a hole in the wall, nothing. I checked the windows. Still latched. The front door, still dead-bolted. No signs of tampering. But then I found something else. Scratches. Tiny, barely noticeable gouges in the paint of the bedroom doorframe. I crouched down, heart thudding. It looked like fingernail marks, 5 of them. Deep and erratic, like someone had dragged their hand along the wood on the way out. Or the marks hadn't been there before. I would have noticed. I stood. Slowly, my throat dry. That's when I noticed the smudge on the bedroom window. Faint. Large, like a handprint, but not human. Too long. The fingers extended just a little too far. The palm was broad and misshapen, distorted like it had pressed against the glass with unnatural strength. I backed out of the room, every part of me screaming that I wasn't alone, even if I couldn't see anyone. That night, I set up my phone to record me while I slept. I didn't want to, but I needed to know. I propped it on the dresser and angled it toward the bed. Hit record. Then I wedged the chair beneath the bedroom doorknob and shut off the lights. The moment I got under the covers, I regretted everything. The air felt heavier, denser, like the walls were listening. Still, I forced myself to lie still. Closed my eyes, pretend I could sleep. Eventually, exhaustion won out. When I woke up, it was still dark. My throat was dry and my body felt stiff. I fumbled for the phone, still recording. I stopped it with trembling hands and opened the video. At first, everything looked normal. I skipped ahead, watching myself toss and turn under the blankets. Then the timestamp reached 3:14 a.m. My blood ran cold. On the screen, the bedroom door began to move. The chair beneath the knob didn't stop it. It slid across the floor, shrieking against the hardwood, as though pushed by something unseen. And then the whispering, louder now. Alex, I see. Something passed across the screen. Not a person. Not a shape. Just a shadow. Long. Thin. Wrong. It oozed toward the bed, stretching along the wall like oil in water, flickering at the edges like it didn't fully belong in this world. I stared, frozen, as it slid right up to the mattress. And then, black screen. The video just cut out. No ending, no error. Just black. I sat there, paralyzed, staring at my own terrified reflection in the phone screen. Something had been in my room again. It had touched the door. It had moved the chair, and it had gotten closer. I didn't know what it wanted. But I was sure of one thing now. It wasn't finished with me. The day passed in a blur. I didn't go to work. Didn't answer texts. I just sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, replaying that video in my mind over and over again. Even though I couldn't bear to actually watch it again. The shadow. The whisper. The way the video simply cut to black. Like it didn't want me to see more, or maybe like something didn't want to be seen. I thought about deleting the file, about smashing the phone and the USB and whatever piece of hell had gotten into my apartment. But I didn't, because part of me knew that wouldn't stop it. This wasn't technology. This was something else. I opened the camera app again. Not to record, just to look, to see if the lens could still show me things I couldn't see with my eyes. The room looked normal, but as I panned toward the doorway, the lights flickered, just for a second, just long enough for the hallway behind the door to darken. And in that brief flicker through the camera screen, I saw it again. A shape, like a silhouette stretched too thin, standing just beyond the threshold. No features, no eyes, but I could feel it watching me. The lights came back. The hallway was empty. I dropped the phone. No more videos, no more recording. I couldn't go through another night like that. I decided I'd sleep in the living room. Windows open, door unlocked. I'd rather deal with a burglar than that. Dang. I curled up on the couch with every light in the apartment on, a heavy blanket around me like a shield. At some point, I dozed off, and then I heard it, the whispering. Not in a dream, not on a screen, right next to me. Alex. My eyes snapped open. The room was dark. Every light in the apartment had gone out, my phone dead. Laptop off. Even the microwave clock blank, a complete blackout. Except for one thing. The TV, it was on, not showing anything. Just static. Snow, flickering gray and white, the low hum filling the room like background radiation, and behind that hum, voices, dozens of them, layered and overlapping. Some whispered my name, some laughed, and some just breathed. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stared at the TV as the static began to shift. Not change channels. Not glitch. Shift into a picture. My living room. The exact angle I was sitting in. But not now, last night. I was watching myself sleep on the couch. And behind me, just barely visible in the grainy flicker, that same tall, featureless shape, standing inches from my head. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. But I could feel it smiling. I leapt from the couch and ripped the power cord from the wall. The screen went black, the static vanishing in a blink. I stood in the silence, heart pounding, sweat soaking my clothes. And then behind me, a breath, warm, slow, right at my neck. I turned, swinging wildly into empty air. No one was there, but the whisper came again. Alex, let me in. I backed away, one trembling step at a time. The apartment felt smaller now, like the walls had shifted closer in the night. Like the floorboards had learned how to breathe. Every shadow clung to the corners like damp, living skin. I didn't turn on the lights again. I didn't dare. Instead, I lit every candle I could find. Desk candles, scented ones. The emergency ones buried under the kitchen sink. Their flames flickered nervously, dancing in response to movements I couldn't see. I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor, back against the far wall, watching the door to my bedroom like it might open by itself again. It didn't, but just before dawn, the whispering returned, not in my ears this time, but in the walls. I could hear it pressing through the drywall, snaking through the pipes and wiring, its voice filtered like it was coming through 100 miles of static. Let ... me ... in. And then came the scratching. Not random this time. Rhythmic, intentional. 5 long drags, pause, then again, like fingernails carving a pattern just beneath the plaster. I grabbed the phone, praying it had charged even a little. It hadn't. The screen remained dark, but the static had returned. Not from the TV, not from the phone. From behind the mirror. I turned to face it, the tall framed thing hanging by the kitchen doorway. My own reflection stared back, pale and wide-eyed. And behind me, something moved. I spun, but there was nothing there. Only the chair I'd knocked over hours ago, but the mirror still showed it. A tall, blurred shape. Motionless. Just watching. I reached for the mirror, heart slamming in my chest. I touched the glass. It was warm. And then it pulsed. Not like a heartbeat, not like anything natural. The glass pushed forward against my hand, soft for a split second like skin. I recoiled, and that's when the whispering grew louder. Still. Muffled. Still distant. But now it wasn't coming from one place, it was coming from everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, the floor, the mirror. It was in the apartment, and it was awake. I ran to the front door, to the fire escape. Anywhere. But, bat room. But when I grabbed the doorknob, it was ice cold. I twisted nothing. Deadbolt stuck. I looked down. The floor beneath the door was black, like something had leaked in. Thick, oily, moving. It was inside. I stumbled back just as the lights flickered violently. Once, twice, then shut off. Completely. Total darkness. Except the mirror. It still reflected light that didn't exist. And in it, the shape moved closer, arms outstretched. Long fingers pressed against side of the glass like it was trying to find a seam, a crack, a way out. My name echoed again, loud and clear now, right next to my ear. Alex. I screamed, grabbing the mirror and throwing it to the ground. It shattered into dozens of fragments, sharp, jagged pieces, spraying across the floor. But none of them reflected my face. Only the mirror was shattered. Dozens of sharp shards lay scattered across the floor like tiny, jagged mouths, but none of them showed me. Instead, they each reflected a different part of it: long limbs, eyeless face, shoulders hunched like a marionette with snapped strings. Some fragments pulsed faintly, not with light, but with movement, like the thing was trying to climb through each piece at once. I backed away slowly, stepping over broken glass with bare feet, not caring that it cut me. I need out now. The front door was useless, jammed shut by that thick, oily blackness. The windows were no better sealed, frosted over from the inside. The apartment had become a cage. I stumbled toward the kitchen, my thoughts scrambling for anything, any exit. The hallway closet, the crawl space above the bathroom, break a hole through the drywall. That's when the USB stick came to mind, still in the drawer. Still humming with something I didn't understand. I rushed to it and yanked the drawer open. The stick was no longer black. It was glowing faintly pale green light, pulsing like a dying heartbeat. I didn't want to touch it, but some part of me, some deeper, older instinct knew I had to. I plugged it back into the laptop. One file, still untitled, but this time it had no timestamp. No numbers, just one word, now. My finger hovered above the trackpad. A voice in my head, my own voice, screamed not to press play, but I did. The video began instantly. Not of my bedroom, not of last night, of me, right now. On the screen, I sat in front of the laptop, face pale, eyes wide, watching the screen. Behind me, the figure stood. Closer now. I spun around. Nothing, but the laptop showed it there, its arms nearly brushing my back, its mouth opening wider than any humans could, splitting down the middle like torn cloth. The video glitched. Lines cut across the image. My face blurred. The room stretched and bent like it was underwater. And the figure, it stepped into the screen. Not toward me, into the video. My recorded self began to twitch, eyes rolling back, mouth opening to scream. The video went black. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, hands trembling. I waited for something else to happen. Nothing did. The USB stick crumbled into dust. I blinked. And then I heard it again. The whisper. Not from the mirror. Not from the walls, from inside the laptop speakers. Alex, I'm not done yet. The laptop began recording again, its camera light glowing red. I stared into the lens, and the screen showed me, still, frozen, watching. But I hadn't moved. My reflection blinked. I slammed the laptop shut and ran. It's been 6 days. I haven't gone back to the apartment. I'm writing this from a motel an hour outside of town. I've changed my phone. Bought a new laptop. I haven't touched another USB stick. But every night at exactly 3:14 a.m., my phone lights up on its own. No number, no caller ID, just one message. Come back. Last night, I covered the phone with a towel to block the light. But when I woke up, it was in my hand, and there was A new video on the screen. Me, sleeping. Only now, I'm not alone in the bed.